Now, this is quite a discovery. Fragments of a biblical scroll.
Police in Turkey have recovered a Bible thought to be 1,000 years old.
Something strange and shocking has just been discovered. A 2,000-year-old book that contained unbelievable secrets that have left the Christian community perplexed. Archaeologists and historians aren't left behind. This ancient artifact revealed unsettling secrets that challenge our understanding of the Christian religion we know today, leaving many to question how true and valid the claims of this book are. Where was it discovered? What is the content? Who is the author? You will find out about these and many more shortly. Prepare to be astonished by the revelations in this video. The Book of St. Barnabas. Historians have uncovered numerous ancient books, some of which contain unsettling information, such as accounts of peculiar events and ancient languages that have faded into obscurity. One such discovery is an ancient Bible recently discovered in the city of Tokat, Turkey. This unique book, comprising both the Old and New Testaments, mentions different events recorded in the Holy Bible, but from a different perspective. For instance, it stated that Jesus existed and walked the earth, but was not crucified. That's a staggering departure from traditional beliefs. Bible scholars do agree that there are minor discrepancies among the different texts and authors of the Holy Bible, but none of the narratives ever mention that Jesus wasn't crucified. However, that wasn't the only shocking revelation. The book contained even more terrifying content. Before delving into that, how was the book discovered? Discovered not in the conventional sense of a Bible, but as a documented book attributed to St. Barnabas, a close associate of Apostle Paul, when a gang of antiquities thieves was caught trying to smuggle it with other valuable artifacts worth millions of dollars. Crafted from animal hides, each page is inscribed in complex handwriting that is just too hard to reproduce. This ancient manuscript, written in Syriac, an Aramaic dialect spoken by Jesus himself, is believed to be worth 20 million. You might want to ask how Jesus could speak Aramaic while all the Gospels are written in Greek. It's very simple. There were multiple languages in the area Jesus lived, and people were fluent in the languages of the time: Greek, Aramaic, and then Hebrew. After analysis by several experts, it was estimated that the book is about 1,500 years old, or possibly even older. But that isn't our focus at the moment. The next shocking revelation the theologians discovered in the book will leave you speechless. The book claims Jesus wasn't crucified. Instead, Judas was crucified, and that Jesus ascended to heaven while he was still alive. This book is beyond conventional, but that wasn't all. There were still many more secrets waiting to be discovered. Keep watching. Another section of this book that contradicts the Holy Bible that we all know also states that Jesus is not the Son of God, but just a prophet sent to deliver God's word. The book also accuses Apostle Paul of being an imposter. Hold on a second. Is this St. Barnabas, the believed author of this book, the same Barnabas, the close associate of Apostle Paul in the Holy Bible? We'll come back to this shortly. The unbelievable content of this book stirred controversies among the Christian community. It has piqued the interest of biblical scholars and historians around the world to the point where the Vatican demanded to see it. Those assertions and many more will still uncover in the video challenge everything we've known for centuries, and the nature of how the book was found made researchers wonder whether it was authentic. Do you know that lately, Tokat, where the book was found, has become notorious for smuggling mysterious artifacts? This trend became more pronounced in 2015 when a painting by Vincent van Gogh called Orphan Man Standing was found in the car of a suspected smuggler alongside this Bible or book. The Turkish police also found a collection of expensive jewelry, 53 ancient coins, and 2 arrowheads. The cover of the book was unfortunately damaged beyond repair. Still, the illustrations within it, decorated using gold leaf, have been said to form the image of Jesus Christ and Mary. The Bible has only about 50 pages left inside, most of which are in relatively good but delicate condition. The pages, though faded, are striking, and to this day, biblical scholars are still trying to make sense of the whole thing. But one thing is sure: scientists have concluded that this book, that is, the Gospel of Saint Barnabas is authentic and not a fabrication, as many believed. Which begs the question, which of the Barnabas? The two different Barnabas. Apparently, there are two distinct Barnabas in the church history, just as we have about 4 or 5 different Johns in the New Testament of the Holy Bible as of now. Yeah, we need to be specific about that in case another Bible is discovered tomorrow to ascertain that we have another John from Egypt. A little humor. First, let's start with the real Barnabas, the one and the only man who bore that name in the Holy Bible. Saint Barnabas, who flourished in the 1st century and is celebrated on June 11th, was a pivotal early Christian missionary highlighted in the New Testament and identified as one of the Apostolic Fathers. Initially a Hellenized Jew, Barnabas became part of the Jerusalem church shortly after the crucifixion of Christ. He notably sold his possessions and generously contributed the proceeds to the community. He was one of the Cypriots who founded the church in Antioch, where he preached. In 48 AD, he invited St. Paul from Tarsus to join him as a partner in missionary work before heading to Jerusalem. Subsequently, a significant disagreement arose between them, prompting Barnabas to depart for Cyprus. Despite lacking contemporary records about his later endeavors, Paul briefly mentioned him a few years later. The exact details surrounding Barnabas' death remain unknown through a 5th century forgery called the Journeys and Martyrdom of Barnabas. Claims he was martyred in Cyprus and buried there. Later, some old church rulers linked him in Alexandria, Egypt, where he is credited with writing the letter of Barnabas, analyzing the Old Testament, and in Rome. He likewise suggested he may have authored the biblical letter to the Hebrews. Barnabas's supposed tomb was unearthed in 488 AD near the monastery of St. Barnabas in Salamis, Cyprus, a city where Paul and Barnabas established the Christian community. But we mustn't confuse the Gospel of Barnabas, the recently discovered Bible, with the Epistle of Barnabas. The epistle may not have been included in the Holy Bible, but not because of any controversial content like what we find in this newly unearthed 2,000-year-old book. In fact, there was a strange claim on the last few pages of the Gospel of Barnabas that left everyone speechless. Keep watching, we'll get there shortly. The Epistle of Barnabas dates back to the late 1st century, but probably not by the Barnabas named in the New Testament. Remember, the church tradition custodians who found the letters aren't even sure. They only suggested that Barnabas was probably the author. While the Epistle of Barnabas holds some historical significance as a pseudo-gospel, it was never recognized as part of the canonical text by the early church or any church council. The Epistle of Barnabas, also known as the Letter of Barnabas, is an early writing of Christianity, often cited by early church leaders. Although it is named after Barnabas, the associate of Paul, the letter itself does not mention its author. Rather, this connection was made by commentators such as Clement of Alexandria. The Epistle of Barnabas uses the term gnosis to convey its message, which means knowledge. Despite this, its content opposes Gnosticism and aligns more closely with the orthodox beliefs of early Christianity. Though many criticized it for heavily relying on oral traditions about the Old Testament, the Mishnah, and employing gematria or biblical numerology, the text reflects an early traditional interpretation of faith. The final section of the Epistle of Barnabas outlines a set of positive commands, each followed by its opposite. These contrasting sets are referred to as the way of light and the way of darkness. The way of light embodies a predominantly Jewish perspective on Christian ethics and conduct, while the way of darkness, also known as the way of the Black One, pertains to Satan. In fact, early church fathers referenced the Epistle of Barnabas, including Origen, who seemed to think it was an authentic writing of Barnabas. They recognized its usefulness, even as they agreed it was not divinely inspired. The text was included at the end of some early copies of the Bible, where it might have been considered as a reference. Even though it's not a part of the Holy Scripture, the Epistle of Barnabas is still a valuable resource. Every believer can get a copy online and read it from the same cautious perspective. On the other hand, the Gospel of Barnabas has absolutely no apostolic support and was written around 1,000 years after the time of Barnabas. This is evident in the fact that it was never quoted by any church father or historian before the 16th century. All the books of the New Testament were written before 100 AD by eyewitnesses or by those who interviewed the eyewitnesses of the Lord Jesus. And the authenticity of the 4 Gospels in the New Testament has never been doubted. Even if the Gospel of Barnabas had been written during the time of the Apostles, it would not have achieved canonical status because of its historical and doctrinal inaccuracies. For instance, the Gospel alleges that Jesus did not assert his role as the Messiah and states that Jesus was born when Pilate was governor, despite historical records showing that Pilate assumed the role in 26 or 27 AD. Moreover, the Gospel of Barnabas keeps some strange company. It suddenly became widely accepted and popular among Muslims because it presents a version of Jesus that aligns with the teachings of the Quran. Both texts suggest that Jesus did not die on the cross, a belief found in Surah 4:157 of the Quran, which has made some scholars suspect that the Gospel of Barnabas was likely composed in the 15th to 16th century AD by Muslims aiming to discredit the traditional biblical message of Jesus. Why is the book of Barnabas not included in the Bible? Here is the honest answer. We need to first understand how the Bible came to be, what the Gospel of Barnabas is, and how it relates to both the Bible and the Quran. First, the Bible was codified in stages. Jewish leaders differentiated the Hebrew scriptures around the 2nd century AD. There were many Christian writings, and people were getting confused about what was Christian and what was Jewish. So, Jewish leaders got together and agreed on what books would be included in the canon. Not long after, Christians accepted those books as the Old Testament, as opposed to the New Testament that began with Christ's teachings at the Last Supper. Back then, a considerable amount of popular writing circulated among Christians. In response, Christian leaders known as bishops began compiling lists of books and letters considered suitable for the canon. Their criteria primarily included authorship by an apostle or long-standing recognition within the church and theological alignment with orthodox beliefs. The process took some time, but eventually, these bishops reached a consensus on the New Testament books we recognize today. Although officially established in the Second Council of Trullan of 692, this list was broadly accepted by the mid-300s. Why is this important? Well, it's important because we don't just add books to the Bible. When the New Testament was written, the council was the one who chose every piece of information in the Bible. Based on what we've seen so far, if the account of the Gospel of Barnabas was real, then they purposefully omitted every detail provided in the Gospel of Barnabas and other Gospels in favor of more canonical passages. Now, back to the Gospel of Barnabas. What was the strangest claim that shocked the theologians and archaeologists who examined the book? At the very start of the Gospel of Barnabas, Jesus is called the Christ. God has visited us during these past days through his prophet Jesus Christ, page 2. However, as the narrative unfolds, Jesus disclaims being the Messiah. Jesus confessed and said the truth, "I am not the Messiah," chapter 42. Wait a second. How can Jesus be the Christ and deny being the Messiah when both words mean the same thing? Obviously, the author did not know that the Greek meaning of Christ is Messiah, only for the author to highlight that Jesus mentioned someone else as the Messiah. Who did Jesus name as the Messiah? Peter, Paul, or John the Baptist? Unfortunately, none of them. It would have been better if it had been a name written in the Holy Bible. Prepare to be awestruck by what you're about to hear. Chapter 3 of the book mentions the simultaneous rule of Herod and Pilate in Judea during Jesus' birth, which is historically inaccurate since these two figures never ruled Judea concurrently. In chapters 20-21, the text describes Jesus sailing to Nazareth and receiving a warm welcome from the seamen of the town, then heading to Capernaum. However, there is a significant error as Nazareth was not a fishing village, but was located about 14 kilometers from the Sea of Galilee, nestled in the hills of a mountain range. This discrepancy suggests that the writer may not have had access to accurate first-century Palestine knowledge. Not only that, the author of the Gospel of Barnabas describes 9 heavens before Paradise It says, "Paradise is so great that no man can measure it. Verily, I say unto thee that the heavens are 9, among which are set the planets, that are distant one from another, 500 years' journey for a man. And verily, I say unto thee that paradise is greater than all the earth and heavens together." Chapter 178. This is the same way Dante describes it in his Divine Comedy, which he wrote in the 14th century. We don't have any other description of the 9 heavens before Dante. Could the author of the Gospel of Barnabas have gotten his inspiration from Dante? If we accept the trending claim that it was written well before the 14th century, it should be included with the Dead Sea Scrolls. But the Gospel of Barnabas was not in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Well, you might want to get pissed off thinking Christians often struggle with apparent contradictions in Scripture, such as the concept of the Trinity and the issue of Jesus' second coming always prevailing, leading them to grapple with conflicting ideas. It's worth noting that similar tensions can also be found within Islam. According to the Quran, marriage binds a woman to one man, but it does not restrict a man to one woman. Muslim men can marry multiple wives, Quran 4 verse 3, and an unlimited number of female servants, Quran 70 verse 30. However, the Gospel of Barnabas promotes the biblical concept of marriage, stating it unites a man and a woman equally. Let a man content himself, therefore, with the wife whom his Creator has given him, and let him forget every other woman. Chapter 115. The Quran teaches that Mary had pain when she gave birth to Jesus, and she withdrew with him to a far place, and the pangs of childbirth drove her unto the trunk of the palm tree. Quran 19 verses 22-23, Pict Hall. However, the Gospel of Barnabas teaches the opposite. The Virgin was surrounded by a light exceeding bright and brought forth her son without pain in chapter 3. The Quran teaches that there are 7 heavens, while the Gospel of Barnabas teaches that there are 9 heavens. Honestly, these assertions have left theologians scratching their heads, leaving them with the question, what should we believe? The height of it was when the Gospel of Barnabas claimed Muhammad as the Messiah. The Quran states that Jesus is the Messiah, not Muhammad. Allah giveth thee glad tidings of a word from him, whose name is the Messiah, Jesus, son of Mary. Quran 345, Pickthall. Contrary to this, the Gospel of Barnabas asserts that Jesus is not the Messiah and names Muhammad as the Messiah. Jesus confessed and said the truth. I am not the Messiah. Chapter 42. Then the text mentions a dialogue about how the Messiah should be identified, with Jesus allegedly stating, Muhammad is his blessed name. Chapter 97. These beliefs appear to go against the teachings of the Quran. By now, it's clear why Christians can't accept the Gospel of Barnabas. It's contrary to Orthodox thought and likely written over 1400 years after the original Bible compilation. However, some scholars suggest a different reason. They argue that the Gospel of St. Barnabas might have been excluded because there is no account of his death in the Bible. He is noted as the only saint whose death is not mentioned in the canon. Could this be true? This is also similar to the case of Enoch and his book. Enoch was a man the Bible noted as being righteous. He daily walked with God until the last day of his life when God came to take him home, meaning he never died the natural death. Another shocking ancient mystery revealed. The Book of Enoch is another ancient sacred text recently discovered that contains the mysterious untold history of man but was intentionally banned from the Holy Book. Recorded in the pages of this forbidden book are so many shocking events and revelations that unravel the secrets of humanity's dark past. In fact, would you believe it if you were told that many of us are descendants of some aliens, the first civilizations that set foot on Earth? Well, the recently discovered book of Enoch gave a clue to that. So, why was the book removed from the Bible? What disturbing revelations have long been hidden from use in its pages? Moreover, this book was widely accepted and read by early Christians and Jews, but all of a sudden it was banned from the Bible. What we found out changes everything and our understanding of history. There have been so many accounts of the history of humanity over the centuries. History has it that humans evolved from primitive hunters into advanced civilizations who constructed pyramids, designed calendars, and left behind ancient writings, and they continue to evolve to the present day. However, the account of the sudden transformation of the ancient beings who were like giants with tails and incredible intelligence, was more than mere human evolution. The lost but found Book of Enoch revealed that there is more to it. In 1946, a group of teenagers were tending their sheep near the ancient Qumran settlement, now called the West Bank. To pass the time, they played with stones and explored the desert terrain. During one of their stone-throwing games, a stone landed in a dark cave, resulting in a loud, shattering noise that startled the teenagers. Despite feeling slightly scared, their curiosity led them to investigate, and they were shocked to discover a collection of large clay pots. Little did they know this discovery held great historical significance. Inside the pots were hidden a series of ancient scrolls. Over time, various archaeologists, historians, and treasure hunters found additional fragments of scrolls in 10 other caves, bringing the total to almost 900 manuscripts. These manuscripts became widely known as the Dead Sea Scrolls. Interestingly, among these manuscripts were substantial portions of mysterious religious text, the Book of Enoch, the oldest known copies of the Hebrew Bible, and other non-biblical artifacts. The Book of Enoch, dated to around 200 BCE, the true author of the Book of Enoch remains uncertain, but it is believed to be the work of different authors over hundreds of years, with each portion added separately. However, it has been traditionally attributed to Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah in the Bible, who was said to have been taken up to heaven by God and given a glimpse into the universe and the future of humanity. Also, Enoch was the 7th of the 10 patriarchs who existed before the flood in Genesis. For reference, you can see that in Jude 1:14-15. Though Enoch was the father of Methuselah and the grandfather of Noah, this book is not the biblical story of Noah's Ark. In fact, the Book of Enoch provides an entirely different story. The Book of Enoch consists of 5 sections: the Book of Watchers, the Similitudes of Enoch, the Astronomical Book, the Book of Dreams, and the Epistle of Enoch. The first section, the Book of Watchers, which is the primary focus of this video, contains the story of how giants, also known as Nephilims, were born. According to this book, these giants were offsprings of some fallen angels. According to the scrolls found in the cave, the fallen angels, also known as the Watchers, were sent to Earth to watch over humans at some unspecified time in the ancient time. However, over time, they abandoned their role as watchers. They began to have contact with some of the humans, mostly women, which resulted in the procreation of what we know now as hybrids or crossbreeds. But the Book of Enoch calls them Nephilim. The Nephilim were described as giants and savages and threatened humanity. However, compared to other humans, they possessed a higher level of intelligence, which was inherited from the fallen angels. Angered by what the Watchers had done, God locked up these fallen angels in an underground prison, deep within the bowels of earth, to prevent them from wreaking more havoc on mankind. As recorded in 1 Enoch 21:10, they transgressed the commandment of the Lord and were imprisoned. This place is a prison house of the angels. They are detained here forever. Enoch became the mediator between God and the imprisoned Watchers, but nothing changed. The scrolls vividly describe Enoch's journeys between heaven and earth as a mediator, how he flew with angels and saw the rivers, the mountains, and the very ends of the earth from above. Despite Enoch's intervention, Yahweh decided that the planet and all its inhabitants must be punished. Of course, the punishment was the Great Flood. You may ask, if these fallen angels are locked up, what of their offspring, the Nephilim? Are they also bound in chains? Unfortunately, no. While their fathers were locked up, the children suffered a different fate. Back in the days before the flood, things were pretty rough. The Nephilim invaded everywhere with their evil acts, and people had to battle evil forces day in and day out. The few righteous people of that era had it tough, with their souls constantly vexed by the prevailing evil. During this chaotic time, God decided to clean up the earth with a big flood. You're familiar with the famous story, right? The devastating flood wiped out everything on earth except Noah and everything with him in his ark. But did they perish in the flood? Well, after the flood, things took a different turn. You see, the Nephilim were a peculiar breed. They were hybrid beings, which explained their extraordinary growth, superhuman abilities, and, unfortunately, their immortality. When the flood waters receded and their bodies were no more, the Nephilim, being non-human, couldn't follow the same path as human souls after death. So, they hung around Earth as spirits unable to live like humans anymore. Instead of staying silent, these Nephilim spirits began searching for human bodies they could inhabit to continue their influence on Earth. Now, you might be wondering, did they succeed? Yes, they did. They didn't have to look far to find suitable hosts. They entered people like Noah. Don't let that surprise you. Before the flood, Noah was known as a righteous man, even amidst the surrounding evil. But right after the flood, something unexpected happened. He planted a vineyard and ended up drinking so much that he got completely drunk and committed abominable acts. Another account also states that one of his sons in the ark with him was actually a Nephilim. Before you discard or argue about that and conclude that the Book of Enoch is a philosophical myth, wait a moment. Even the Holy Bible mentioned Nephilim several times. According to the Book of Numbers 13:33, 10 of the 12 spies reported seeing them inhabiting Canaan. They were described as so large that they made the Israelites look like locusts. You will also find the word fallen angels, Nephilim, or giants, in Ezekiel 32:27, as well as in the Deuterocanonical books, Judith 16:6, Wisdom 14:6, Sirach 16:7, and Baruch 3:26-28. How about the famous Goliath in the Holy Bible? You probably might have heard the story a million times. He was a giant, standing at an incredible height of 10 feet and measuring 6.5 feet wide, and of the lineage of the Nephilim aside from his enormous size. He was basically a walking bronze statue. He had a bronze helmet, bronze greaves on his legs, and a bronze javelin slung on his back. If that's not enough bronze for you, his spear was like a weaver's rod, with an iron point weighing 131 pounds. And if you think he was the only giant in the Bible, you are wrong. Moreover, the event of Goliath's defeat wasn't Israel's first battle with giants. As they journeyed from Egypt to Canaan, a land of giants, they encountered these gigantic beings. The Canaanites were a mix of giant races standing at a staggering 10 to 15 feet tall and measuring 6.5 feet wide. The Israelites had to deal with these giants, but they defeated them before taking over Canaan as their land. And this is where it gets more interesting. The Holy Bible recorded that they encountered another giant, King Og of Bashan, a colossal 15 feet tall. He was so massive that he needed an iron bed just to accommodate himself. One could call him a monster. See Deuteronomy 3:11. If you are also a Bible scholar, you will realize that Goliath had 5 giant brothers and sons. They are all in the Holy Bible. If they no longer exist, we won't have many references. In fact, they are among us. Throughout human history, there have been numerous accounts of giants. One renowned traveler and explorer, Marco Polo, even documented his encounters with a race of giants in Zanzibar who possessed such immense strength that they could effortlessly carry 4 ordinary men each. While the people of modern Tangier, Morocco, claimed that the founder of their city was a giant named Antix, an Irish myth tells a different tale. According to this myth, the massive Giant's Causeway on the northeast coast of Ireland, which consists of over 40,000 interlocked rock columns, was built by an Irish giant, Finn McCool, to cross the sea to Scotland to fight another giant. Apart from those legends, ancient Greek mythology is full of stories about giants. Perhaps if giants existed as records from countless cultures suggest, then the Book of Enoch would look less and less symbolic and more like a manuscript based on actual history. Who knows, many of the heroes and giants we celebrate these days with extraordinary features could be the offspring of this angelic human species. By the way, legend has it that Enoch is the founder of astronomy and the one who compiled the solar calendar and many more inventions. It is quite surprising to know that an important book such as this could be banned from the Bible. Many even claimed that the Book of Enoch influenced the Book of Genesis due to similar narratives. But why? Are we also going to discard this book as an error or a mere tale? You might also ask, why are they just being discovered now? Looking back in history, The persecution of Christians is evident. In 64 AD, Nero blamed them for the fire of Rome. Later, in 303 AD, Emperor Diocletian ordered the confiscation and burning of Christian scriptures. Even during the Dark Ages 500–1500 AD, Bibles were burned along with their owners, and literacy in general was forbidden. This explains why these books and similar ones have been hidden from authorities and the wider population for many years. Now, we have the books of two men whose deaths were not documented in the Bible, excluded from the Holy Bible. Could this be a mere coincidence? Or is there more than meets the eye? Other missing books. The Protestant Christian Bible, the most well-known and widely used Bible, is based on a collection that differs from other versions due to the omission of over 19 books, 5 Gospels, 14 epistles, and other pieces. These excluded texts were primarily disregarded by churches, notably the Catholic Church, for various reasons. Early Christians often rejected these books as they were viewed as heretical and did not completely match the 66 canonical books that form the modern Bible. While it is valuable to explore the knowledge contained in these excluded texts to gain a deeper understanding of biblical narratives and uncover details not found in the canonical books, many of these texts should be approached with caution due to their lack of alignment with the canon. The books not included in the Bible were simply excluded based on improper dating, lack of historical validity, and doctrines that were not accepted by the early church, such as the Book of Thomas saying that women must become men to enter the kingdom of God, and linguistic inconsistency. For instance, after theologians examined various excluded texts, with the exception of the first Maccabees, other Old Testament books, such as the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Maccabees, lacked substantial validity. The first Maccabees primarily narrates how the Jewish community coped with the impact of Hellenistic culture. The Synoptic Gospels and the Gospel of John are dated early and supported by a multitude of documents, over 5,000 in Greek and over 10,000 in various languages. They align with the beliefs of the early church, and their authorship has been independently verified, unlike other texts such as the Book of Judas, the Gospel of Mary, and the Gospel of Thomas. The simple fact is that the books excluded from the Bible just don't have the same historical validity as those included, and they should be excluded unless found to be genuine documents. Another prominent example is the Book of Thomas. In 1945, some farmers in Nag Hammadi, Egypt, were digging and came across an earthenware jar in the ground. The farmers, hoping to find treasure, were deeply disappointed when they found a bunch of texts instead. Little did they know those texts would be more valuable than any treasure they could hope to find. Within the collection of texts, there was one that opens with the line, "These are the secret sayings which the living Jesus spoke, and which Didymus Judas Thomas wrote down," and ends with the Gospel according to Thomas. Unlike the canonical Gospels, Thomas doesn't follow a narrative structure. It doesn't report major parts of Jesus' life, his birth, death, and resurrection. Instead, Thomas contains 114 esoteric sayings of Jesus, purporting to record the secrets Jesus taught to his disciples. Despite the best efforts of some, Thomas doesn't even come close to Scripture. It wasn't backed by apostolic authority. Its contents contradict the Orthodox texts, and the Church never even came close to considering it as authoritative. The content of the Book of Thomas was quite fascinating, providing insights into early Christian beliefs and practices, unlike the 4 Gospels found in the Bible, which focus more on the life and teachings of Jesus. The Gospel of Thomas consists primarily of his sayings. Scholars believe that the Gospel of Thomas was likely written in the 2nd century, making it one of the earliest Christian writings outside of the New Testament. Remember, the text was discovered among a collection of Gnostic manuscripts in Nag Hammadi. Gnosticism is a diverse religious movement considered heretical by early Christian leaders, which may explain why the Gospel of Thomas was not included in the canonical Bible. The sayings in the Gospel of Thomas often take the form of cryptic, wisdom-like statements that encourage reflection and contemplation. Some of the sayings bear similarities to passages found in the canonical Gospels, while others offer a completely different perspective on spirituality and the nature of the divine. Among the most well-known sayings in the Gospel of Thomas is the saying 77, in which Jesus says, "I am the light that is over all things. I am all. From me all came forth, and to me all attained. Split a piece of wood. I am there. Lift up the stone, and you will find me there." This saying reflects the belief in the immanence of the divine within all creation, a concept that differs from mainstream Christian teachings. Another intriguing aspect of the Gospel of Thomas is its emphasis on the idea of self-discovery and inner transformation. In saying 70, Jesus says, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you." This underscores the importance of self-awareness and authenticity to manifest whatsoever you desire, which is sort of contradictory to the theme of faith emphasized in the Holy Scriptures. While the Gospel of Thomas may not be included in the official canon of the Bible, its discovery highlights the complexities of early Christian history, notably the diverse beliefs and practices that existed within the early Christian community. The Bible is an important document, the best-selling book of all time, with over 6 billion copies sold. So if we're going to add books to it, the books added better be verified to be correct, or we're simply inviting confusion into humanity. The Bible does not specify how Barnabas died, but reports indicate he was martyred for his faith, following the path of some other apostles. He was said to have been either stoned or burned to death in Salamis, Cyprus. In Acts 15:11, Barnabas and Paul preached a message of encouragement in Antioch before their disagreement led them to part ways. This sharp disagreement arose when they couldn't agree on bringing John Mark along after he had previously deserted them. Consequently, Barnabas took his cousin John Mark and sailed to Cyprus, while Paul teamed up with Silas and journeyed through Syria and Cilicia. But Paul said something intriguing afterward. In his letter to the Galatians, Paul spoke harshly about his friend and brother in ministry, noting that, by their hypocrisy, even Barnabas was led astray. Could Barnabas never return to the right path and wrote the book out of error? Even if that was true of Barnabas, Enoch walked uprightly with God. Even God confirmed that. So there is no way he could have written inaccurate text. So what should we go with? It's unrealistic to expect complete accuracy from a book that is 2,000 years old and was written by humanity during a turbulent era of wars and terror. Moreover, how do we distinguish between a Bible and just a book? Just because it's old doesn't mean the content is true, as lies can be easily put on paper. Don't forget that many writers were against the movement of Christians at that time, so such a book could be someone's diary. Over to you, viewers. What do you think? Thanks for watching another episode of Beyond Discovery. While you're still here, check out the other videos you see on your screen.